Today, Dr. Kyle Hill talks about the plant on the street and the plant in the store. Is one better, or are they both the same? Dr. Hill talks about the potential of cannabis as an option to pain management and not solely pharmaceuticals. We also talk about cannabis and professional sports. Keep listening to join this discussion. And now, part 3 of It's the Whole Plant for Me. Can you talk to us about the difference between those two products?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Pastor Johnny. And to make a distinction between, medical and recreation. Okay, so depending on what state you are, you can get a medical card, you can grow your own, and you are also privy to like certain products and dispensaries that have a higher level of THC and things like that. But truthfully, it's the same plant. So whether you're using it, medically as a patient or you're using it recreational, the plant is still the same. Now, the thing that I like to stress is if this were a federally legal and regulated substance, we would have more standardized on our products. We would know more exactly what's in it and make sure it's tested for pesticides, make sure it's tested for heavy metal, make sure we know the concentrations of the specific cannabinoids. And that's the problem when you buy things off the street. You have no idea. You get something in a baggie and you hope somebody did what they were supposed to when they grew it, but you don't know. A lot of times they use pesticides to make sure, the plant isn't eaten away by pests. And then those pesticides have chemicals that can be harmful, especially if you're immunocompromised and you're using cannabis as medicine. So one of my other push for federal legalization as well as regulation is that we get a more certified product. And then like as a health provider, you feel more confident recommending something to a patient. As far as, the idea of medical versus recreational, my thing is everybody has an endocannabinoid system and everybody has a different endocannabinoid tone of that system. And so I personally believe that every use is really medical. If you're using it all day long that's not really medical. Maybe you're trying to help an anxiety issue that you have or depression, but I still think it's important to be in connection with a healthcare provider that can walk you through it to make sure you don't have any adverse reactions and make sure that you're starting at a dose that's low enough and you get to a therapeutic level where you don't have a lot of bad side effects. So it's important that these compounds are regulated.
Yeah, there are so many things that, you hear, particularly the story of DMX, and I don't know if you heard his story, but he said that he was out with his mentor and they were smoking, but the weed was laced with crack cocaine. So he ended up smoking, I forget what the street term is, but he ended up he thought he was just smoking some weed and ended up smoking something else. And then we see the course that his life took. And so that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about the medical use. And I was like, there's a difference that's there because you might have some guarantees a little bit more through the stores, but there's always a chance for corruption, and that's one of the things that is concerning. And do you think that at some level, because they do understand the research, that the objective to keep this from becoming the potential juggernaut that it could in the medical industry is more about some maybe privatized contracts? Because I'm one of those documentary guys, and I watch these it'll say this little city in Utah has twice the amount of opioids in it than the whole city of Houston. I'm the guy that watches that video and it's like, oh my God, there's only 30 people that live there. Why are there a million pills of Xanax there? I don't know. And I watch that kind of stuff, but what it does show is that there's something that happens behind the scenes with a lot of these different things, kind of like what we see with even the NRA, where you have a lot of big major money investors that are investing their money so they get favor, even though the numbers may say this could be healthier for the country. So how do we do that? Do we need more people invested in this industry? Do we need some big bankers to come out and be like, look, I'm rolling with them. You got it? I'm rolling with them? That was funny. Okay.
I like that.
Hey, it's 420. I'm rolling with them, right? So is that what we need to get this ball rolling, or what else?
I agree. Money makes things move, right? And right now, the pharmaceutical industries have lots and lots of money. And I don't want to be one against pharmaceutical industries. Our pharmaceuticals are important. We need them, especially as a physician. I wish that.
But there's room at the table.
With us.
There's room at the table.
Yeah. I really wish that, that we could use their resource to kind of develop out specific medications, that work on the endocannabinoid system that are safe. I mean, we do know of the CBD derivative that they produce for the epilepsy did have some kind of concerns on it. I'm not completely sure why. I think maybe some of the dyes and things that were added to it. But I'm kind of also an advocate for full plant. So, I mean, it's hard finding that common ground.
Explain full plant for people like myself who are still learning, because you've been teaching me a lot, so I do appreciate you being patient with me. So explain what it means to be full plant.
So the cannabis plant has all of these cannabinoids, terpenes, constituents that go to make the plant. And there's been a lot of research in what's called the entourage effect, that when all of these compounds are working in conjunction with each other, the effect is more efficacious. And so when you see things like the one medication that was created with the CBD, that's more so like an extract where you're taking just the CBD and then using that to create a medication. And there's been some studies that show that maybe is not as efficacious as using, like a full extract, using everything in the plant as opposed to just one compound of the plant. So, the idea of trying to find common ground, with the pharmaceutical companies to kind of, I don't know honestly how that looks, because there's a lot of other advocates for full plant. And when you think of pharmaceutical industry, they kind of, their idea is a one molecule approach. That one molecule you can kind of work better with and patent it better. You can't patent plants. And so, then it becomes a money issue. So that's such a compounded, problem that I really hope we can kind of work together where we're not stepping on the pharmaceutical industry's toes and they're not, cutting physicians out of recommending something that would be helpful to patients. I see a future, hopefully, where we can all get along.
Yeah, okay, we all get along. I love that. Now, for the record, I'm full plant too, because I eat the whole broccoli stem. The whole stem. Now,
your fiber in.
Yeah, I'm full plant. Now, let me ask you this. Recently, we just had, I think it was a week ago, where there was an ex-NFL player that had not an altercation. He actually shot his doctor who was treating him, and the doctor, his wife, 2 children, and then 2 workers that were on that property. And when we had last talked, we had talked about how the NFL is still trying to keep back the use of marijuana from some of their players, when it actually could be something that is very helpful and could extend the career of some of these great players that we have. And for someone like myself who loves Earl Campbell, when we see our guy, like, okay, like, maybe this could have helped. What do you think that role of marijuana or cannabis could play in extending or helping the NFL or other, golf, basketball, hockey, all of these things, wrestling, these guys are some full contact and their bodies take a lot of abuse. So how could it help them?
I think that is a very important point. We've already looked at CBD as far as a neuroprotectant. And fun fact, the U.S. actually has a patent on CBD as a neuroprotectant. You can actually Google that. So I don't know, that conversation can get kind of sticky.
Yeah, that's the pot in the kettle.
But we have learned that a lot of the different compounds in the cannabis plant, help with things like muscle and bone repair, neuroprotectant, which as a football player or a wrestler, anybody that sustains a lot of head injury, that is something that's important. Let's protect those neurons that are getting banged around a little bit. Also, the ability to just kind of relax. A lot of, football players, I feel like, are kind of in this adrenaline high stress, you got to get amped up to play the football. I think, some CBD to kind of relax them at the end of the day or at the end of the game would be very beneficial, to kind of for their body to heal itself after, such impact and things like that. I personally believe that there's a place for it. And I think I read something that maybe the NFL was kind of get on board with CBD a little bit or thinking about it. I'm not sure how that turned out. But I would hope that these, national, sports leagues would look at, something like this for their players.
I think what's crazy about what you're saying is I had this experience personally. I was taking the teams on a trip, I was a youth pastor. And we were at a place, and the vending machine was out of every drink but Rockstar. And so I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna drink one of these Rockstars. And I knew for a fact, because I had heard kids talk about it, that it probably wasn't the best thing for me to drink this whole drink. So I took the drink and I mixed it with a ruby red grapefruit. I had a little small can of ruby red grapefruit. And so I poured like half and half. So I had half the ruby red and half of this Rockstar. And I poured that together and wham! Eyes like stuck open like for like a 6-hour stretch where I was like, oh my God, this was bad. And literally I felt like my heart was gonna jump out of my chest. And I said that to transition back into what we see some of these NFL athletes doing. It's crazy that they could see a guy pound a Rockstar or drink, a Red Bull to get themselves up for a game and know the damage that does to a body and to your heart specifically, and be like, all right, cool, that's cool. It's not addictive. And it's like, yeah, but it's really, really bad for your athlete. But at the same token, would then deny them something that could provide healing and relaxation. So it's like you can go up, but you can't get any help coming down. That kind of seems silly, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And it's crazy because we know, how addictive caffeine is. And you have withdrawals if you miss, a coffee and you've taken coffee, most of your life. You will get the headaches, the agitation. So it baffles me, that we have all of these very legal products that we know have addiction potential, withdrawal problems, and, are not, like you said, really good, for our heart long term. Especially if you have high blood pressure, you shouldn't be doing, caffeine drinks like that. You're just causing your heart to stress even more. So I would like to see, and like I said, it could get a really convoluted conversation as to why, some of these things aren't looked at more in depth or accepted, by even, the medical industry. When I was doing my rotations in Georgia, it was kind of my thing, I wanted to know what physicians knew about the endocannabinoid system, and it was just non-existent. It's not taught in medical schools, but here's a system that, is kind of the hierarchy of all the other systems. It's connected to your nervous system, your digestive system, your reproductive system, your endocrine system, and all of those things regulate like every physiological process in your body. So I'm really hoping that this is now something that will be starting to get integrated into medical schools. I think into all schools. I think it should be taught right along in biology courses. It's very important. And, if you want to leave out the cannabis marijuana aspect of it as being a ligand for some of those receptors, like I can understand that. But I think it's still imperative to know that we have these receptors and how they work and where they're working.
Thank you for joining us for part 3 of It's the Whole Plant for Me with Dr. Kyle Hill. If you have questions about the cannabis plant or about the CBD product, join the discussion by using the hashtags JDO3 podcast and hashtag Dr. Kyle Hill, that's KYLE. We want to hear from you. If you would like to participate in Pastor JDO3, the podcast, email me at pastorjohnny@firstmet.org. We'll see you next week for part 4 of It's the Whole Plant for Me.